your family, even though you love them. Please give it up for Tom Papa and Rainn Wilson. Keep it going, keep it going.
Woo. Thank you.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody. How are you?
What's going on? You look good.
Hi.
We're authors now. You may know us as funny people, but we're authors.
Good night. Thanks for coming. Look at all these books out here, Tom.
It's so daunting,
What's
isn't
the
it?
deal with that?
I thought we were the only guys who wrote books.
I know.
There's so many books here.
I thought there would be 2 books in this store. These 2 books.
I know. So many other people
Yeah.
wrote books. Thanks for doing this, buddy.
Yeah, thank you for having me do this. Tom, today's a very important date. Why don't we start with that? This is, what is it, June what? What are we? 12th?
12th.
June 12th,
Yes.
and in 1993, something special, magical, scintillating, and wonderful happened.
Yes.
Did it happen in New Jersey or in New York City?
It happened in New York City.
Fill us in, tell us the story.
On June 12th, 1993, I did my first stand-up comedy set. So today is my comedy
birthday.
birthday.
Yeah.
30 years, my whole adult life. And my daughter pointed out that you've been a comedian longer than you have not been a comedian on this planet.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's pretty crazy. I walked into the New York Comedy Club, and Greg Giraldo was the only other comedian about to go on, and there was a host, and there were 6 people in the audience, 4 of which were my friends, and I did my first set.
How did you get the gig? How did you...
The Village Voice.
See, had you done no coffee shops or open mics before that or
No,
anything? It was
nothing.
the first time you were
time.
on stage with a microphone in your hand.
Yeah. And
Your first joke was... Go.
I had a book-related joke.
Oh, that perfect
It
segue.
was the only time I had written one that was a joke form, and it was at the time they were giving out. The joke was they're giving out condoms in schools now without your parents' permission. When I was a kid, I needed 3 notes and a blood test just to get a ride on the bookmobile. It still works. That was my very first joke.
It did not work on me. I didn't quite even
Why?
understand it.
Why? You don't know what a bookmobile is?
I know what a bookmobile is. Why would you need to give blood to go on a bookmobile? That doesn't connect.
It was like...
It doesn't make any sense.
It does. Because you know what? I don't.
So
do
how did it go
I
over
don't
with
do
the
it for
6
my
people?
peers. I do it for the people.
You know who's funny? Bert Kreischer.
Yeah. The guy who takes his shirt off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We should do that.
Whoa. No. Like I said, it's my 30th anniversary. This isn't a body you want to see. A lot of dangly bits.
Well, you have a wonderful chapter in here.
Just one.
Frankly, no. How you know when it's time to go. This is a lovely book. Have you guys seen this yet? This is Tom Papa's. We're all in this together, so make some room. And I do want to ask about that title, but I want to ask first about this chapter because it's connected to the comedy club. I thought it was such a poignant and tender chapter where you put this comedic memoir of your life in New Jersey. Maybe you want to read a little part of it or talk to us a little bit about that chapter, because it's this, I would say, connecting it to Soul Boom, there was kind of a mysterious spiritual transformation of sorts that happened when you were with your friends drinking beers and playing Sega hockey and eating Hot Pockets year after year after year, and you kind of saw your road going in this certain direction.
Yeah.
And then you kind of saw that, oh, maybe there's this other kind of road over here.
Yeah.
And then you just knew. Can you talk a little bit about this chapter, this very tender, intimate, perceptive chapter in the midst of the rest of this bullshit?
Yeah, it's the chapter, I believe the essay is knowing when it's time to leave. How you know when it's time to go. And I wrote it a while ago. It's, yeah, there was that time, I grew up in New Jersey. I always wanted to be a comedian since I was a kid. Since like 7th grade, I knew I was going to be a comedian.
Did you do comedy at like talent shows and stuff in the cafeteria?
Later on, like in high school.
Okay.
But I knew when I was I was funny, and I knew in 7th grade, I learned that being a comedian was a job. Like I heard who George Carlin was and Steve Martin was at that age, and that was when I was going to be a comic. So I lived in New Jersey, and I saw New York, and I knew that that's where comedy happened. And this essay is about that pull. You can easily stay with your friends and have a pretty good life.
Yeah.
Eating buffalo wings and playing video games, and they'd all be at my apartment before I even got home from work. They'd be smoking weed, and we had a tinfoil Stanley Cup that we played months for. And it's kind of a fun life. But it was getting in the way of me going to be a comedian. And I knew I had to leave. I knew I had to push all of that kind of fun, dumb stuff aside to go after it. And it's interesting because I love comedy and it's a great life and it gave me everything. But if I had stayed there and ate wings every Friday with my friends, not a bad life. You know what I mean? Like, you still know the people at the diner know you, they know your parents, you know the roads. It's very profound. So it's like, I knew there was one day we were drinking outside, and people were, my friends were getting drunk and throwing rocks at a stop sign. And my girlfriend was trying to light a cigarette under a down jacket. And I remember looking at all of them and like, I gotta get out of here. And I did, but it's not, even though it gave me this life, there's not a little pang of regret that I didn't stay.
Well, Tom Papa Sr.'s here, right?
Yeah, my father's here. My daughter's graduating tomorrow from high school, so my parents are
amazing.
Are here.
Amazing. Was it worth a round of applause?
He just made a trip.
Well, I thought they were applauding for your daughter graduating.
Oh, maybe.
Which is...
Then that's applaudable.
Your
son's graduating.
My son
too.
is graduating
this
from
week.
high school. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you know.
We're both going to be empty nesters.
It's hard to fail out of high school. So graduating from high school, it's not that big of an accomplishment.
That's true.
In some ways, failing out of high school is a much greater accomplishment. It's much harder to do. You know, there are safeguards along the way.
It's true.
But does Tom Papa Sr., did he make the right choice, or should he have stayed in New Jersey and Patterson and thrown rocks at signs and gotten high?
I think he made a good decision.
Okay.
He doesn't talk a lot. Yeah.
He didn't sound that convinced that he made. I think he...
Your journey...
You have Netflix specials. He has Netflix specials. Of course he made the right choice.
Guy's never happy. My whole life is trying to get his approval.
That's your next book.
Yeah, I never really felt that. They were very approving the whole
that's
way.
Nice.
Yeah,
that's great. You have
yours didn't seem like yours seemed like it. Was there a crossroads moment? It seemed to me like you were on this journey that took you in all different directions.
I did have a crossroads moment. I in my other book, The Bassoon King, you can read about it. That's probably not even available here. Maybe it's in the remainders section.
But at a discount.
Yes, $1.99, along with DVDs of The Rocker.
Do you ever have them contact you and they're like, you might want to publicize this. Kindle's doing a deal. Your book's free. I don't want to tell people that.
No.
So yes, I'm sorry. Bassoon.
So I, like you, always had a secret inner hankering for acting.
Yeah.
And it really came when it started with me watching sitcoms of the great 70s and early 80s television shows.
Yeah.
And I loved MASH and Bob Newhart and Taxi and all those shows, and I loved all the crazy kooky sidekicks on the sitcoms. And I mean, I didn't even know at that point that was a job, you know?
Right.
I mean, they were just these mythic. I remember one time I went into Farrell's Ice Cream. You know that's a chain on the West Coast, Farrell's Ice Cream, and there was a signed headshot of Alice from the Brady Bunch by the cash register. And I stared at it with my jaw dropped, like, wow, Alice. I mean, for some reason I thought she had signed it there, you know? And I was like, wow, the woman who played Alice from the Brady Bunch was here at this cash register and signed that. And that's the ink that came out of the pen. I mean, to me, it was astonishing. It was mind-blowing. These figures to me were these giant mythic figures.
Yeah.
But then I started doing theater in high school, and then I thought, well, I could do theater. I met some actors in Chicago, and like, oh, I can go do theater, and you can get a couple $100 for doing that. But it's a job, and people do it. And so I was thinking about pursuing that, and I went to a couple years of undergrad, and then I needed to really make a decision, because I kind of knew, like, if you're gonna go into the acting biz, you have to go all in. Like, you've got to go 10 years, both feet in. You can't kind of dabble at it. You have to make that full commitment. And I was visiting my mom in Boston, and that's when the movie A Chorus Line came out. It was like 1985, and the movie version of The Chorus Line is known as one of the worst movie musicals ever made. Like, it's always, anytime, just look up top 10, it's at the very top. It's so horrible. But I saw a matinee of it in Boston in the winter, and it was all these actors like, I really need this job.
I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get it.
Yeah. That blended into West Side Story, but that's all right. Actor, crazy actor. Doodle-doo-doo, doodle-doo-doo-doo.
Bum, bum, bum.
Audition.
I'm gonna get this part, I'm telling you.
Anyway,
You watched
I was
Chorus Line?
watching Chorus Line.
And it was terrible.
It was terrible, and I knew it was terrible, and yet I was sobbing, and tears were like running down my 20-year-old face. And I walked out of the movie theater, and it had started to snow, and it was kind of this red light from the sun setting, and so it was kind of had this mystical glow, and these tears were on my face, and I was like, that's it, I'm in. I just knew there was like a switch, there was like a lever in my heart, and it went shakong.
Right.
And I was like, that's it. And so I went and I auditioned for acting schools. I was lucky enough to get into NYU and got a really good acting education and moved to New York City. But that's what I wanted to talk about too, is New York City.
Yeah.
In the 80s, we were talking about it a little bit earlier. It was, so you were a teenager. I was 20, so you would have been 17.
Yeah.
It was a nutty time. That was back when there was graffiti on the subways, like in Welcome Back, Kotter, you know?
And the squeegee guys would lay on your car as soon as you got through the tunnel.
And they'd wipe it with newspapers. I always wondered, like, why are they using newspapers to
just spit on it and use their
Yeah. And subway tokens, right? No cards or anything like that. And it was and everything was for sale on the sidewalk. I mean, it was just like socks were available, and everything you wanted.
Yeah, it was
so.
And then it changed. Then it was like this really golden era.
Right.
And how long did you stay there? When did you leave?
Well, I left in '99 to come out here.
In '99.
Yeah.
And
then I
2002.
auditioned for the Tom Papa Show.
Yeah.
And I tested twice for it.
Twice.
Yes, and didn't get it, but a little man named Steve Carell did get in the Tom Papa Show. Do you want to talk to us about that experience?
Do you not? I was so close to ruining both your careers.
Yes.
It really is a crazy story. But I had this show. I did stand up on Conan, and they came and got me and wanted me to do this sitcom.
That's back in the days when stand-up comics, they were backing the money truck up to stand-ups giving people development deals. Not that you weren't worth it.
But it was off
every
of
penny.
Seinfeld, so it was like, yeah, if you were that model of being a comic.
And Everyone Loves Raymond was one.
Yeah, and Brett Butler's show and all of it. And so I had the show, and I was trying to cobble it together, and I tried to get Rainn, my friend Jen, who's here, I think, was in a Rob Zombie movie with you, and she turned me on to you, and I'm like, he's got to be my friend in the show. He's got to be. And we went to audition, and they said no.
I wasn't very good.
The part wasn't very good.
Well, but also I never, the first actual multi-camera sitcom that I ever did was just like 3 years ago when I did a running character on the show Mom with Alice and Janney. I had never done multicams because I was not very good at hard jokes like
right.
Right.
You know, with the audience trying to
You know, stuff. I didn't quite get that.
You were
I was like character. I was
you
theater.
were artistic.
Yeah.
You were artistic. You were like a film actor.
So I needed
which
to
is why
play.
The Office worked so well. You guys were you weren't kind of pushing that, and kind of revolutionized comedy. But
keep
before
going,
I was trying to I wasn't trying to revolutionise comedy. I was just trying to get these really funny people. I wanted to make it, and so we tried twice, and then they went with somebody else, and then Steve Carell had a deal at NBC. And they're like, will you put Steve Carell in your show? And we're like, well, this new president of the network really wants Steve Carell. If we put him in, he'll definitely keep our show. And what we didn't realize is while they were putting him in our show, he was also auditioning for The Office at the same time. And we lasted 4 or 6 episodes, and they gave him the part, I think pretty much on like our 3rd episode. They were just kind of running it out, and you had gotten the part already, and you guys went off to The Office, and my show went off the air.
You have specials on Netflix.
It all worked out.
It all worked
just fine. But I will admit it was a rough summer. The first summer was weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, because then Steve did the 40-Year-Old Virgin.
Yes.
Right, that first one, and it was hard. I had a friend.
His first 3 movies were Anchorman, The 40-Year-Old Virgin, and Little Miss Sunshine, all of which made like $200 million.
Insane.
And so he was just like
so good.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the thing. It was just as comedy people that I knew you were. We just knew. We were like killing ourselves what I did with Greg Malins from Friends, and it was like, no, we're yelling at the network, this human being is special. And they had already had the deal with Carell, but we're like, holy cow, this guy is special. So at the very least, we knew comedically what you guys were, and the show had other problems and what have you, and it really wasn't that devastating because I didn't even think I was gonna have a show. It just kind of happened so quickly, so it wasn't like this devastating.
Not long before, 9 years earlier, you were throwing rocks at stop signs in New Jersey.
Yeah.
So
9 years.
You've come a long way, baby.
Thanks.
Why did you title the book "We're All in This Together"? So make some room.
Why did you name this Soul Boom? Why we need a spiritual revolution? Yours is more self-explanatory.
It is.
How's the revolution going since the book came out?
Terrible. No one signed up.
Damn it.
Any volunteers for a spiritual revolution? Okay, I got one Topanga hippie woman over here, and that's it. Let's go. Let's get this going.
Baby steps.
Yeah.
I mean, to start a whole religion is pretty big.
I try and start a religion in here. I have a chapter called "Hey Kids, Let's Build the Perfect Religion."
Yeah. And the perfect world, right?
Well, I do. Hey kids, let's build the perfect world, because I wanted to. So this is. We're here to talk about Tom's book, but I'll mention this.
I love this book. If you haven't read this book,
okay.
There is a commonality between our two titles and what we're trying to do.
We have the
with these
same
books.
book agent.
We do.
Richard Abate.
Which we just found out. Who, by the way, has probably no spirituality in his bones.
None.
At
Not
all.
even at all.
He's
Yeah.
not in this business.
He has not
to
read
save
my book.
people
Yeah,
or make
yeah.
them laugh. No, he hasn't even read our book.
Yeah.
That's true. He just wants to sell books,
Yes.
which is great. He's great for that. But
What is the
commonality is that
Cars.
we both, well, we have little things, but the general thing, we both sense or have a feeling or a craving for a better world,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And mine is
You do it.
changing it by making jokes, and you want to start a religion.
Yeah. You make Seinfeldian observations about toasters, and I quote the great philosophers. But ultimately, we want the same thing.
We do.
Yeah.
We do.
Yeah.
I felt that when I was reading.
You understand this is what comedians do. We make fun of each other, we bone each other, and it's all in love, right? You get that, right? Because sometimes you do that and people are like, he's so mean to him. He's so mean. But you weren't gonna, can you talk about making a better world? We're all in this together, so make
We're all
some
in this
room?
together to make some room. It really came off of touring around. At this time when they're telling us that we all hate each other and that we all want to kill each other and we're so divisive, and by they I mean cable news, when I tour around and I go to these theaters and all these people come out, I don't find that. I don't find everyday people act that way. I don't find that they believe it. I think that there is still a solid America that loves each other and just wants to get through the day and doesn't even want to pay attention to all the noise from what they're doing. So this book started with that, but then it went into like a more human level of not only are we all in this together, we need each other and you can learn from each other. Every dumb thing that you're going through has been gone through for a millennial by other people. Like, you're not that special. You're really not that special. You feel like you're unique and you're the only one to go through these problems. But it's right, just graduating, our kids graduating, there's a whole slew of people that are telling us what's next. Let me tell you how your life's gonna be when they leave. Let me tell you what's gonna happen in 4 years. Because we're all playing from the same brochure. And so this book is a little of the observations I have in life to let you know, as a little bit of a guidebook of how to live your life.
One of the things I was noticing in reading your book, because I was looking for like, what are some themes that is in the Tom Papa oeuvre of comedy?
Ooh.
And I was noticing that you are a keen observer of everyday life. And I think you would say that that's your milieu. But I thought there was a lot of attention that you paid to cultural rules.
Mm-hmm.
Like, these are the rules of like,
Yeah.
how things work.
Yeah.
And then you notice deviations from those rules.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about that as I was flying. This morning I found myself in Orlando. and
What a brag.
I flew from Orlando to LA to do this event and to be with my family a little bit. But also I broke some rules today, and I thought of you because I was reading your book on the plane, and I broke two rules. One was I was sitting in a window seat, and it was a 4.5 hour flight, and I about an hour and a half into it, I got up to pee, and you had to kind of squeeze through, even though it was in first class.
Of course.
You still had to kind of squeeze through, and the woman was like, okay, and she got up, and she had a laptop and a thing, and her thing,
Her office.
She got it, she moved, and like I went and peed and stuff. But then you know what? An hour and a half later, I had to pee again. And the second pee, I could tell she was like, and there was like, because it was kind of like a rule, which is like an unspoken rule, like you can pee once, you're peeing twice, and if I had to pee 3 times, it would have been some serious trouble.
Yeah, but
That reminded me of a Papa-esque kind of observation that you would make.
It is, definitely, but you're a little off on what the rule is.
Okay.
The rule is if you're on the aisle, you get up as many times as that person has to get up and pee.
You chose to sit in the aisle.
You're in the
so
aisle. That's where I
the
live.
price you pay.
That's where I live. It's I'm just laughing because my friend, remember that Daniel Day-Lewis, There Will Be Blood, that movie?
Okay.
And he said, the famous phrase was, "I'm an oil man. I'm an oil man." Well, when I started touring, I would walk around and go, "I'm an aisle man. I'm an aisle man. I come from a long line of aisle men. When people have to get up to pee, you get up and pee, you let them pass. That's what we do in the aisle." But I really believe that. I believe you got to get up. You were okay. You know.
Yeah.
I was you're a man.
within
You
my
got caffeine
rights.
and water and a weird prostate. You got to get up.
Exactly. The other unspoken rule I violated on this plane trip was the stewardess.
Flight attendant.
Sorry,
I know. I'm learning too.
I'm gonna get canceled.
And you know what? There's no waitresses anymore.
What?
Servers.
What?
Yep, they're all servers.
Servers and flight attendants.
Yeah. No banging the waitress.
You can bang a server,
Or
but not in a computer sense. But well, I'm sure it's been done now with AI.
yeah.
So I told the
Waitress-
flight
waitresses and
attendant.
stewardesses are no longer a thing, but banging still is.
Yeah.
What'd you tell them?
Well, I was like, so the bathroom was locked, and I was in the front, and I was like, "So how are you?" And she's like, "Good." And then she's like, "How's it going?" "Good." And I'm like, and she goes, "Yeah, I'm just so excited to. It'll be better once we land. Once we get to LA." And so I took that as, oh, she lives in LA. I don't know where the flight crew is located.
Oh,
so
no.
I was like, something you need to know about me. I hate Orlando. I was like, yeah, thank God we got out of that hellhole. And she looked a little odd, and she's like, "Oh, you don't like Orlando?" I'm like, "Are you kidding me? It's a cultureless void built on a swamp." And she goes, "'Cause of the heat or whatever." I'm like, it's like, I was telling Tom, I was like, well, it's a morass of development, but at least in Los Angeles, there's culture. You know, there's the entertainment industry and world-class art museums and Hispanic Latino culture that's been around for hundreds of years. Like, what is Orlando? What is it? And then she just looked a little bit sour, just like, and I was like, "Do you live in Florida?" She goes, "Yeah, I live in Orlando." So the unspoken rule is like,
Yeah.
don't start mocking the city a flight attendant or server is from. I don't know. What do you think? But it just got me thinking about the rules.
I don't know if that's a steadfast rule.
Like complaining.
A lot of people
you had a whole section on complaining. I wrote that down about rules around complaint. A lot around
complain.
drinking. You had rules around drinking, like martini versus beer versus wine.
Yeah.
Like there's
Or like even
you look at the.
Follow the rules.
Yeah.
Follow the rules.
Can you tell us about some of those?
There's like cocktail hour is at 5:00, and I know there's a lot of lame T-shirts. It's 5:00 somewhere, and a lot of bad country songs about it. But you know what? It works. There's a reason that 5:00 is cocktail hour. It is, people have figured out for hundreds of years. They tried drinking at 12, didn't work out. They tried later at night, not so good. You're angry with your family at dinner. 5:00, perfect. Work's done. You're gonna see your family. Get a pop, and then you ease into the night. Now, why fight that? Well, that is a rule. That is a steadfast rule.
Although on a plane, that's not a rule.
Yeah.
Drinking on a plane, I'm always amazed at, like, you get on a plane, it's 10:30 in the morning. It's like, I'll have a Bloody Mary. I'll have like a,
People slamming white wine at 6 a.m. But they're scared. They're scared.
Oh,
That's not.
they're medicating?
They're medicating. I've learned that. These people are very frightened. They're just getting through it, and they're drinking Maker's
This is
Mark.
wisdom of the aisle, man.
That's right. And if, again, as an aisle man, if you want to booze it up to feel better and calm your fear, that's okay. You're gonna have to pee a lot, but
Right.
it's better than you being all tense and angry.
Yeah. The other thing is I wore I take my shoes off when I fly, and then I wear my socks into the bathroom, and that's really not a good idea.
Yeah, that's not great, but that's really just for you. That's gonna hurt you. You're gonna have weird, soggy. It's bad. But if you were going barefoot, then you're offending everybody.
Right.
So socks, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
But taking your socks off, now you're in violation of the human code, which is
Here's another rule that maybe you could work up some material for, because I'm not a stand-up comic. I've never written a set, or I wrote a handful of jokes. The only jokes I ever wrote once were for a couple of times I did charity events, and I told people that I had a mental breakdown in my 20s, which is kind of true, but that when I was in a home for that I wrote these jokes and I put them in a shoebox under my bed when I was in a kind of psychotic episode. And then I recently found this shoebox and I wanted to see what the jokes were like. So I started taking out these really weird jokes that I'd written, but people believed me. They really thought that I had written these jokes while insane, and they were very...
Were they bad jokes?
Well, here's one.
If it's about a bookmobile, I'm walking out.
I had to give blood in order to get into a bookmobile.
That's a horrible delivery.
Here's one.
Okay.
Women. You can't live with them. You can't live within them.
It's in the book. You write about that in the book.
I do?
Yeah.
It did not do very well. But if you
I think
put
it
in
did. It
context
did
of,
fine.
like-
It wasn't bookmobile laughs, but I definitely heard some laughs.
Rachel, the store manager, is literally shaking her head like, no, that's bad. Like,
What does that mean? You can't live within them, like that you would be.
You can't. It's physically impossible to live within.
Oh, it sounds like a
Someone-
weird sex thing.
Oh, I didn't mean it that way.
Well,
I meant
you-
it more like alien.
Well, you were
Like,
you were crazy when you wrote.
well, that was the idea.
Should we take some questions?
Yeah,
Are we
let's
at
do
question
that.
time?
Yeah.
Yeah. This was so nice. We should hang out more.
Oh, that's nice.
Any questions? Just raise your hand and we'll do it the old teacher way. Don't be shy. One question,
There's got to be one.
not
question.
one question that anyone has. Yes.
Topanga, please.
Topanga.
I'm Bobby from Moreno Valley, and I would like to be your beach attendee.
Oh boy. I was telling you about my radio show that I do.
Yeah.
And last year we went to Malibu in September in what is politically incorrect time known as Indian summer. September is a beautiful time there. And I don't know if there's
It's
a new
flight
name for
attendant
it.
summer.
Flight attendant. Thank you. Thank you for that. And we broadcast from the beach and it was fun. And now this year, listeners are trying to come and be a part of that day when we do it this September. And Topanga, as you call her, has shown up to advocate that she should be the one on the beach trip. And I don't see anyone else going for it, so
You're in.
I can't say
You're
that
in.
you're in, but you're in the lead.
You're being very seriously considered.
Yes.
Any other questions?
What was
Yes.
your most memorable gig, or what was your favorite cities to play?
Most memorable gig or favorite cities to play? Well, I want to thank you because I know you're not interested in the answer to either of those questions, but you felt like someone's got to ask something. What would you ask a comedian? So thank you.
It's like
Anytime.
Comedian, I don't know, fucking comedian.
Yeah.
Favorite city.
Yeah. What made you
What do
want
you
to start
like?
comedy? It's very nice of you.
You know what we need to bring back is prop comics.
Yeah, there hasn't been a good one since CT.
Carrot Top?
Carrot Top. And he was the best at it.
Yeah.
I mean, he really is very talented at it.
He's made a whole life.
Yeah. There hasn't been a good prop comic since then. Because, I mean,
Did you ever see Chairman of the Board starring Carrot Top?
No.
That's good.
Are you in it?
Nope.
No? Better than Chorus Line?
It is, actually.
interesting.
So where do you like to perform? What do you?
New York's great. Sometimes Minneapolis is fun. Denver's cool.
Orlando.
Love Orlando. Very little known fact. Orlando, hot spot for comedy. Hot spot. As long as when you're there, you make fun of Clearwater. Don't make fun of Orlando when you're in Orlando.
I thought she was an Angelino.
That was pretty bad. A lot of people shit on their own towns, though. They usually like to.
She seemed
Pile on.
genuinely hurt.
Yeah. Must have been your delivery.
Don't you know you live in a cultureless morass? I mean, it's
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
yeah.
Poor lady.
So no questions. We didn't think that
Yes,
this was going to
row
happen.
2.
Hi. Has there anything in your, your shows that you guys have been a part of, has anything gone terribly wrong? Or, like electricity or like, I don't know, IBS or something? Or...
That's a good office question. Was there ever like the power went out or somebody couldn't talk or someone died on set
Yeah.
that we don't know about?
No, Creed died in season 5. And he was replaced with a different old guy who looked exactly like him.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
And you never publicized it.
No one ever. This is the first time.
No one ever
letting
knew.
Anyone know about that.
I had a guy die at my show.
Oh, you killed, as they say.
And I have to say, there was a little part of me that was like, yeah. Is that
That's
morbid?
terrible.
I know.
That's horrible. Your father raised you to
I
think
know.
that way?
Yeah, it was pretty bad. But
Did he laugh himself to death, or did he
I'm assuming.
shit himself to death?
I'm assuming there was no preconditions. I think he just came in, laughed so hard that he died doing what he loves. Topanga coming in twice.
Scones have anything to do with your placement with all the Harry Potter behind you?
Scones is an intern on our radio show. He's a grown man who plays Quidditch for fun. Could you imagine? He holds a broom like a fake broom and runs around a field and thinks he's flying. And
Quidditch through the ages.
whoa, look at that. Quidditch through the ages. Oh, but J.K. Rowling wrote it. No, it's pretty embarrassing. I saw a video of him doing it.
Is it like they hop around like on a broomstick?
Yeah. And
So it's like Monty Python when they're riding horses, like
Yes, exactly. And then when that when they run and like do a little, that they think, I'm flying. Yeah.
Wow. Why don't they ride drones? Think about
You
it.
think about it.
Someone back there had a question, and the curly hair back there, yes.
Mr. Wilson, I haven't seen in my lifetime actor be so vulnerable about their spirituality in such a public space and really encouraging and calling other people, young artists and adults and everyone in between, and to embrace their own. And I'm wondering if in the acquisition and distribution of these feelings of yours, you've felt any loss or grief in your community or in your craft.
Wow, that's a deep and important and good question. Thank you very much. What's your name?
Hannah.
Hannah, thank you so much. Yeah, it's interesting. This has been quite a journey for me. It's spirituality and mysticism, philosophy, sociology, life's big questions, the meaning of life. These questions have always haunted me. And I've kind of always been like, why aren't people talking about these all the time? Isn't this kind of what life is about? Why are we not talking about the meaning of life? And so I would study and research and read a lot of religious texts, and as Soul Boom came out, I did a lot of interviews talking about mental health issues I had when I was younger, anxiety and depression and addiction and loneliness and disconnection and whatnot, and and deep unhappiness. And so I've been on this kind of spiritual journey, and I think when COVID came, and I'm at a certain point, I'm at a very lucky point in my career where I kind of have enough money and I've had a good career, and I hope to keep acting, and I like acting, but it's interesting. I'm a member of the Baha'i faith, and I sent this tweet out recently because there was the show The Last of Us, and there was this. It started where there was this pastor talking to his congregation, and immediately I'm like, oh, he's gonna be evil. And I mean, like not even a full second, I'm like, he's evil. Not only that, he was like a cannibalistic pedophile. And so I tweeted about this. I'm like, why do they always make Christians like these evil dudes? I mean, there are some evil Christians, there are, but there are 99% like really. Well, I'm not gonna go 95. 82% really kind, good,
85
Christian folk, and I got inundated with all of these Christian actors were like texting me and writing me and saying thank you so much for saying that, and I was getting calls to do interviews, and I was like,
Well,
why don't you talk to the Christian? I'm not even a Christian, I'm a Baha'i.
Right.
Because people are afraid to talk about spirituality or religion and stuff like that. It's very verboten in kind of Hollywood, and I risk being kind of labeled as like a woo-woo, gooey, weirdo, but I'm already kind of a weirdo anyway.
do you think that you would have been do you think you would have been brave enough to talk about it as a rising actor?
I think it would have been much, much harder.
Yeah.
So
Because they can't hurt you. You've got your work done.
at this point, I'm okay.
Yeah.
And I didn't do that consciously. It's not like I bit my tongue,
Yeah.
when I was more, struggling 10 or 12 years ago, and like, oh, I better not talk about that. But it just, at this point, it's kind of like I don't really give a fuck. And so I'm just going to talk about my reality and my journey and my life and what I think is important, because I truly believe that excavating spiritual concepts for personal and social transformation is hugely important. It's important on a personal level. We're in the worst mental health crisis humanity's ever known, and we're on the verge of some of the worst kind of sociological crises that humanity has ever known, and those same spiritual tools can be used to unify people, bring them together, and move humanity forward. So to me, it's just really, really important, and that importance overrode the fact that a lot of comedy folks especially are going to think that I'm weird and uncastable for talking about God.
I have to say, though, just as an anecdotally, watching you go through, Rainn's book came out just like a month before mine, and watching you go through all of your events and the response, and being on podcasts with a lot of snarky comedians and stuff, I feel from the outside that people embraced it. I don't think there was pushback from our community at all. It was kind of the opposite.
Well, I do feel that, because I've been talking about spirituality and spiritual ideas and God and the soul and the meaning of life stuff for a long time, and there is a new, different receptivity now than there was even like 5 or 6 years ago. Because as things kind of continuously kind of break down, I think people are kind of going, we all hated religion and spirituality because of all of its hypocrisy, but maybe we should reconsider some stuff there, because nothing else seems to be working.
And this might sound like a joke, but I think a little part of that too is TikTok. I think social media. I think when you see these people, these great thinkers from the last century, having their quotes and all highlighted on social media, it's moving. As silly as, we can all shit on TikTok, but when you see these people with real points of view and sharing them in just these little you're inundated with it in a positive way. I'm glad to hear that you're going to continue acting, because I might have a role for you.
Oh, nice. Yes.
So you said that you've done, extensive research for, all the different religions. So I guess, what was it about the Baha'i faith, or just that religion in general, that felt like it was for you, or that fulfilled you? Like, how did you know it was meant for you?
That Baha'i was?
Yeah, or just religion.
So the question was, how did I know that the Baha'i faith was right for me, or that religion or talking about spirituality was right for me in my journey? how do I answer that?
Your parents were Baha'i, right?
My parents were Baha'is. I raised Baha'i, and I left it for a long time. I didn't want anything to do with religion or spirituality or any of that nonsense.
Nerds.
And as I was going through some mental health crises of my own, there weren't resources in the 90s to deal with like anxiety the way there is now. And therapy was something I certainly couldn't afford, and there weren't like hotlines to call or information on the internet or anything like that. So I went to the one place where I thought there might be some answers. And for me, it did help me a great deal. Reading about Buddhism, studying Buddhism, and Hinduism, the Bhagavad Gita, and indigenous religions, Native Americans and stuff like that, I found a great deal of meaning and solace there that kind of made my life richer, and it just resonated with me and helped give my life, I've still made a lot of mistakes, and I'm not perfect or by any means, but it made my life richer and better and more, because I do think that there is one of the aspects of the mental health crisis is a lack of meaning and purpose in young people. If we believe that climate change is going to kill us all, that we don't have souls and we die when our body dies, and there's not much to live for, and then we can live lives of kind of endless distraction on our phones and endless edibles, and then we're distracted and we're medicated, and then we die. And I do think that there is much hope to be gotten, and hope is what humanity needs in finding vision, mission, and purpose in life.
Well said. Rachel, how we doing? One more? One more. Is it a good one?
It's an easy one.
You're gonna close it.
Was there ever, either one of you, when you were filming something, was there ever a scene that you guys had trouble getting through? Laughing, you couldn't even get through it. It was getting to the point of annoying you. The other people who you were filming it with were sort of getting annoyed because you couldn't stop laughing.
He's asking, have we ever been filming something we've laughed so much that it was hard to continue?
Yeah.
What do you think, Tom?
I had one scene in The Informant. Soderbergh put all these comedians in The Informant. That was with Matt Damon. And there was this comedian, Bob Zaney. Do you remember Bob Zaney? He was like a road comic. Great name. And he's very funny. He's got this really kind of like, just a funny being. He's kind of chubby, and he used to when he did stand up, he would have a cigar, and his catchphrase was, "Yeah, baby, yeah, baby," and he just has this way about him. And it was like this big scene, and he was the one coming. It was a serious film in a lot of ways, and he was coming to give some information, and it was going to blow my character away, and I couldn't look at that man's face without hearing "Yeah, baby," and I was like, you don't want to mess up for Soderbergh, and I was just, when we did the scene, I just stared at here on Bob Zaney. I couldn't make eye contact with him, or there's no way. If I just looked in his eyes, I would just crumble. He just had that humor.
Well, that same technique worked with me for Steve Carell. When he was like on his thing, I wouldn't look down at his sternum, but if you just shift off like 3 or 4 inches and just don't meet their eyes, it reduces 90% of the humor toxin.
Did you have people on the set, on the cast, that you did that to them, that they had a hard time with you?
Sometimes, yeah. Brian Baumgartner was the worst. He would laugh at anything. You could just kind of go, and he would just. Oscar Nunez never. I think he cracked up once. We found one time in 200 episodes.
Whoa.
He cracked. Yeah, we laughed a lot on The Office, and when we did the scene with Dwight and Jim on the party planning committee, hanging up the brown and gray balloons, and it says, "It is your birthday, period." John and I could not stop laughing. They had to shut down production. Literally, I'm not joking, they shut it down for 45 minutes, and they just were like, and then we came back and we still laughed, but we were able to get through it.
Amazing.
And if you look at the bloopers on The Office, like, People was like, how do you film that and keep a straight face? But if you look at the bloopers, we're laughing all the time. And speaking of laughing all the time, ladies and gentlemen, make sure to pick up your copy of We're All in This Together, so make some room, by Tom Papa, ladies and gentlemen.
Or Soul Boom, Why We Need a Spiritual Revolution by Rainn Wilson. Thank you, buddy. This was great.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks for having me. This was delightful.
Yeah, this was so nice.
Thanks for coming, everybody. Support your local Barnes & Noble. And here to take it away is Rachel, the store manager.
Thank you for the claps.